Hello everybody, welcome back to the James Norris Allcott channel. That's not a hickey. It's not a hickey, it's a bite before you start. I don't want any of that nonsense. And the hammer's back, alright? Before we start that as well. Welcome back to the Fallout, which is just a fancy way of me asking you to get questions in, topics that you want to talk about, and then of course we talk about them. If you want to get your topics in, follow me on Instagram or Twitter. Instagram in particular would be nice because I'm under 1,000 away from the swipey uppy thing, and I'd love to do the swipey uppy thing. This video is sponsored, by the way, by Ultimate Fan, who I will be talking about my initial round of points, and we will be talking about a beef that I've got with Spencer, gently happening, cooking, simmering under the surface. But let's get straight into it with our first question, which comes from Billy Coles. It's not even a question really, it's more of a statement. Ronaldo was awful for 85 minutes of the game, but because he got a penalty and a very good goal at the end, to be fair to him, he was given man of the match, which he didn't deserve at all. Now, I mean, this is one of those, and like I've said this in the first episode of the Fallout. If you haven't checked that out, go check that out. We spoke about England quite a lot. Obviously, we're not going to do it too much because we've got the England-Scotland preview on the way. But there'll be some of these comments where I'll go, honestly, don't worry about it. And this is probably one of those. Let's have a look at his stats from the game. Now, the important one is this one. He did score 2 goals. Now, there is a broader point, I think, with man of the match a lot of the time where it just gets given to the guy who scores a couple of the goals. Overall, I thought with Ronaldo, it's going to be down to kind of service. He did have an opportunity in the first half, which he probably would have scored, or should have scored, sorry, as someone as competent as he is. Generally, I think it's more a general kind of conversation to be had about Portugal. Ronaldo, I think the point with him is that this is the kind of selfishness and fire that he has. It's not even selfishness. They won a penalty. He should be taking it. The guy's a joke. What I was really impressed with is just that this incessant fire that Ronaldo has as a player is unbelievable. And I'm going to say this a few times on this video, but go and watch the previews. I know there are a few bits and pieces wrong, but tactically, having watched the first round of games, I think we got it pretty spot on. And what we said about Portugal, the big thing we said about Portugal was that they need to get crosses in to Ronaldo. When I looked at the crosses, there were 27 crosses. So that sounds good, right? Only 4 reached a man. Only 4 reached the target. And in particular, that target will be Ronaldo. My problem with that, again, which we talked about in the previews, was that there's not that out-and-out winger for Portugal. Yes, of course, Hungary defended for their lives. They were brilliant. That was so unfortunate with the disallowed goal, which of course was offside. So be it. But Bernardo Silva, he just doesn't really want to get down to the byline and cross it in. Same on the other side with Jota, because he's actually going in and getting involved. He's more of a round-deuter, as we spoke about. So that is the problem that Portugal will have. And also, I think there has to be a pinch of salt with all of these games against huge nations, against minnows, without being disrespectful to Hungary, because they defended for their lives. They defended really, really deep. And Portugal could have played better. I thought it was a bit too lateral at times. It needed to be more getting down the sides. Although their average positions were really wide, it was always so deep. That was the thing. There wasn't really committing players through dribbling and getting past them that way. And that's why I think Ronaldo, although didn't have a great game up until that point and had that one chance from Pepe, overall did exactly what you need from him, which is to score goals and win games. And the guy is just an absolute joke, continues to be. And although there might be moments where you feel like he's a little bit selfish with the way that he plays, look at that second goal. That's little 1-2 passing. That's unbelievable stuff. And he wasn't awful. He's pretty good, actually. Just quite late. Right, guys, let's talk about this beef with Spencer, because both of us are playing Ultimate Fan this summer. A lot of you guys got involved after the first video. Thank you so much. Over 500 people from this channel are getting involved in Ultimate Fan, so you guys should get involved as well. If you haven't heard of it, it is essentially fantasy football, but you get to open packs as well. You've got to be over 18 and from the UK to take part. But in the first game day, I did not do very well. I got 14 points. Hazard didn't play. It was just a bit of a disaster. Kulusevski didn't play either. I got 14 points. I finished 4,077th. Spencer, somehow, 82 points. And he had... Look at his team. What? Ridiculous. So what that highlights to me is that anyone's got a chance in this, is certainly in the group stage. The great thing about it as well is that there's a new game day every single round of games. So if you missed the first one, doesn't matter. Make sure you get involved. With Ultimate Fan, you can play absolutely for free and win money. And now is the exact time to do it because there aren't that many people playing the game. It's a brand new game. So if you get involved now, you've got a much better chance unless you pick a team like I did. But fortunately, I'm a gold subscriber, so I'm going to get more packs along the way. And you guys, if you haven't signed up yet, if you sign up now, you will get the backdated gold packs as well. So you will have a really, really great squad. And gold packs mean gold players. So I'm going to open my second gold pack right now. Here we go. I've got Sauli Vasanen. Okay. Sergi Busquets has COVID, but will be back soon, might be playing. So he's an option. I need to keep an eye on that. And Ciro Immobile, yes, come on. So Immobile needs to come in. Who comes out? I mean, Hazard hasn't started, neither is Kulusevski, so that was a bit of a nightmare. If I can only have what's between him and Depay? No. Right then, guys, I've got some big decisions to make. I will reveal my final team on Twitter, so make sure you check that out and send me screenshots of your teams for game day 2. Get involved. Link is in the description. Back to the fallout of the Germany versus France game, and Brad Bissett says this Germany team have potential to provide an upset even if they finish 3rd in the group. I wouldn't be surprised if they did finish 3rd. That's where I put them in my Euro predictions, but within those Euro predictions, I also said that they would finish, they would get to the semi-finals. They are, let's not get it twisted. In terms of the personnel that they've got, they're right up there. This France game, I think all of these games, you've got to look at them individually. That's what you always need to do with games of football. And again, this is a great France side. They've got the first goal, crucially. After that, the dominance was there from Germany. Germany had a higher XG than France in the game and played well at times. I think they just lacked that little bit of quality to unlock them. Maybe in sort of one-on-one situations as well. The likes of Kimmich and Goossens kind of not really being able to just dribble past a player and use that kind of burst of pace. And there's an imbalance there. And maybe up top as well, this idea of them being really fluid. The reason they're being really fluid is you don't have a proper out-and-out striker. That out-and-out striker was Volland, who came on and was pretty dreadful. So maybe, you might want to bring him in. I don't know, but then that means you've got to drop Havertz or Muller. Havertz, I thought, had some nice moments in the game. And you can see there's a bit of a kind of Chelsea vibe to the way that they're playing, with Rudiger on that left-hand side, Havertz further up, Havertz, Griezmann or Benzema. This team is absolutely just perfectly made for Pogba. And so watch out for that. You will see it. But especially if France continue to play with this kind of low block without the ball. And I don't blame them for doing that because they're so defensively solid. Varane was unbelievable. Kante was unbelievable. Defensively, they were outrageous. But then on the other end, it's a bit like Bayern Munich PSG when they were playing Bayern Munich. Every time they were able to get in, because what you're supposed to do as the opposition, you can't just defend in your own half when you've got the ball. So although this is very pragmatic, once again, it's utilising the absolute weapons that they've got in terms of Griezmann, his movement. I thought Griezmann's work rate was outrageous yesterday as well. Benzema as well. And then Pogba playing on that right-hand side and being able to look up and play those through balls to Mbappe is going to be pretty frightening. Watch out for that as the tournament progresses. On to Instagram, and you guys gave loads of questions on Instagram, so thank you for that. Sam Dawes98 said, will home advantage be a thing at the Euros? On a broad scale, I think as it progresses, yes, I think it definitely will do. If you look at the teams that are going to play all of their group games at home, it was only Denmark and Germany who didn't win their games, and actually both of them had a higher XG than their opposition. I think, look, the bigger thing for me is it's about travel. It's about not having to move around all the time, and the kind of, I guess, the fear of that as much as everything else, as being in a large group. The fact that you can have a base for the entire tournament and then play in a place that you're used to playing at is a massive advantage, I think. Huge advantage for England. That's why we've been so good in previous tournaments, 1966, 1996. To be playing at home is huge. Now, the stadiums aren't completely full. That's another thing, but it's something, right? At least you get that gentle feeling, even if it's not as vociferous as you would like. I think it's a massive part of this tournament. I hope it's not something that continues, because I don't think it's truly fair. I think we should have a host nation who they play their games at home because they've kind of picked up the bill for it in terms of setting everything up. And of course they get the benefits from that. And one of those is playing at home. I think when you've got it, the top nations who have the top stadiums, it makes sense for them to have it. But I don't feel like it's fair, especially against those small teams coming up against the opposition at times. It seems a little bit unfair for me. Stanford asks, are Italy serious contenders to win the tournament? Yes, Stanford. Yes, they are. Because they're on the nicer side of the draw. If they win their group, which we would expect them to do so, then they're going to be playing the team that finishes second out: Netherlands, Ukraine, Austria, or North Macedonia. That gets you all the way to the quarterfinals without truly getting out of second gear. You know, if it isn't the Netherlands, you would expect them to win it. And the way that they played against Turkey, a team that everyone was kind of going, oh, Turkey could do something, they made them look just beyond average. It made them look like visitors, sort of coming in, passing through, and then off you go. Because the two inverted wingers in Insigne and Berardi, the movement was great, you know, and it's what we spoke about in the previews. The chemistry with this team is just well above a lot of the other teams, and I think that it's been a talking point for a lot of pundits is that there's only so much you can do in international football. And I don't totally agree with that, because I think the thing is that you need to find the parts that work for your team. And so there are teams that do feel a little bit imbalanced. Portugal a little bit, you know, Germany a little bit with the striking situation, Spain maybe a little bit as well. But for Italy, maybe not having the same kind of names, but in terms of that chemistry, they've had such a long run up that they looked really good, really, really good. Immobile as well, you know, getting an assist, getting himself a goal. You know, he was 20-1 at the start of the tournament to be the Golden Boot. And now he's got himself a real chance to go and do it. So definitely, because they will get themselves, I would expect, to the quarters without too much trouble. And then it's kind of up for grabs, and you've got a team that's going to be sort of bouncing with confidence by that stage. So why not? On This Day asks the tactics around finishing first versus second in order to secure a better last 16 tie. Look, I don't think there should be any tactics for this. I think with Southgate previously, it was there on a plate. Play a completely different team. If you win the game, so be it. If you don't against Belgium, then you deal with the consequences of that. But to go out and to not try and win these games, you know, after the first group game is incredibly dangerous. And if you think of the media witch hunt that there can be around him anyway, a lot of the time, imagine if he tried to draw a game, there would be an absolute outroar. I think Southgate knows what he needs to do here. I think if he believes in this squad and how far they can go, or at least the potential of it, I think you just have a real go at it, have a real crack at it. You know, play well, have momentum, have confidence in the team. And in the next two games against the Czechs and the Scots, then you should be winning those games quite comfortably, to be honest. So I think it's too risky to do that. I think just deal with the cards as they lay, and just win the group. I just think it's a dangerous ploy to do anything apart from that. James R. Wills asks, would you change any of your predictions based on the first round of games? No. I don't think I would, because when I looked at it, I think a team that I thought I was going to struggle a little bit might have been Germany, but I still said that they would get to the semi-finals. I thought Italy would surprise a few people. Again, I think most of the predictions that we made in the previews have been correct. You know, Bruno, I got a lot of heat for that one, but Bruno I thought was pretty poor in that first game against Hungary. No doubt he will step up and score a worldie at some point, and everyone will go after me, and that's fine. But I still think that it's not even his fault. It's just this kind of system and the players that they've got. They will sometimes kind of get in his way a little bit. So he did struggle in that game. Belgium beating the teams that they should be beating, the smaller opponents, quite convincingly. Again, I think we all thought that would happen. Spain struggling to score goals. I think that was a little bit of a surprise that they weren't able to break down Sweden, but we can talk about that a little bit later on. France looking strong and haven't really had to kind of get out of second gear. I think that's probably, you know, that's reinforced that prediction that I expect them to win. And yeah, England again, England doing all right? So I think all the predictions I put out there to start with, I think the one that you might say, not one that I really made, but other people made, was that Turkey. But let's see how they get on in the last couple of games. Who will be the top scorer? Orlando W asks. So it's still quite open, of course. I think there's one player that we really should have been talking about from the start, and I think naturally you don't, because you try and find someone else. But Ronaldo, you know, even in the group of death, and of course he's played Hungary now, so it's going to be the two harder games. But he did score 2 goals in that game against Hungary, and if Portugal are going to score goals, and I think the other thing, this is what I'm excited about with those other games against each other, is how they play. I think Portugal might actually beat France. They've got a chance against France, because if they play with that low block and are able to defend well, then they might be able to have that space in behind to counter-attack. That was the poor thing about Germany, is their transition was far too slow. that, you know, you see that again. I've said it 3 times now, that 127 touches from Cruz. That means that they're playing pretty slow, pretty side to side, not playing quickly enough. I don't think Portugal would do that. I think they would look to get Ronaldo in quickly, you know, and maybe even play someone like maybe Andre Silva up there with him. I don't know. I mean, probably not. They probably look to kind of retain the team that they've got here. But Jota, of course, will be up there with him. So Jota will be the guy that can go beyond as well. And so with that space that might be there, they could hurt them, and then Ronaldo could score some goals. I said before the tournament it was going to be Lukaku. I thought he would score a lot of goals in the group stage, and he's done all right so far. So I'm going to stick with Lukaku, but Immobile as well has got to be a talking point. And again, Harry Kane, I don't think you can look too far away from him as well, with the Scots and the Czechs still to come. Woodhall Daniels talking about the lack of attacking intent from some teams, just seem happy to sit back. I think that's just the group stage for you. And I think as football progresses, you know, the idea of just sort of going at it is sadly kind of moving away until you get to the knockout rounds, where you've got 2 teams that are happy to have a bit more of a go at each other, which I think you will see a lot more as the tournament progresses. Obviously, in the group stages, you are going to have teams like Hungary who need to defend for their lives. You are going to have the likes of Sweden in that game against Spain, where they really just weren't able to get out of their own third, really. But I don't think it's too big of a problem. You know, I think also the thing is that teams keep the ball better and look to keep the ball better and take the sting out of the game as well to get themselves set up to attack. The other thing you've got to remember is that it's about possession a lot of the time, and you've got players that are just technically very sound and able to kind of recycle the ball and kind of start again. That's something that Scotland did very well in the qualifiers, and it kind of hurt them a little bit in the game recently, is that the way they kind of start again is that they have their back 3, which is nice and wide, and they play it along the back line, but they come out and recycle again to sort of start an attack. So it's a very different kind of attacking. It's less gung-ho, but I think to say that there is a lack of attacking intent overall is I would say is harsh. And if you think of the big boys who are kind of going for it, they are still kind of dominating it, but they're dominating it outside of the opposition's penalty box. So a lot of the time, they're just kind of waiting and waiting and waiting. It's more patience instead of lack of attacking intent. B. Bamford asks, are you surprised by the amount of games that have been 0-0 at half-time? Absolutely not. And the reason is it's the first game of the tournament. I think there's just a very, very clear understanding that you do not want to lose that first game. So the teams that are expected to win it, I think, have been a touch more cautious in their play and trying to be patient, trying to get rhythm, a lot of nervous energy, a lot of scrappy first halves. And then the teams that are looking to just get a draw out of that first game because they're the underdogs, they're happy to sit back, and it's quite a kind of content half of football because both teams just don't want to lose that first game. Second half, I think that's when you've seen it open up a little bit more, and for some teams it's been a little too late. Spain, another great example of that, where I think they were kind of passing to death Sweden in the first half, but there wasn't that same intensity, and then in the second half then you're starting to sort of scrabble around to make sure you get the victory. So I'm not surprised at all. Back to Twitter. Jack, which teams do you think have matched expectations and which have exceeded expectations? So I think the surprises, are Slovakia, Ukraine, Finland, of course, in heartbreaking circumstances, but I don't think anyone expected them to win that game against Denmark, which they did. And I think Sweden, in terms of the result, I didn't expect them to do what they did. Switzerland as well, I think there was some, they really dominated that game against Wales. Wales felt like it was a win for them. And Switzerland were a team that we were kind of looking at and going, oh, is there going to be that much sort of to be offered by them? So I was surprised by them, and Mbolo as well, who is one of my players so far, which is another question. V10 Aguero says, some of the best players you've seen from the first round of games. Mbolo in the first game against Wales was just, a real battering ram for them. Just kind of got the ball and just attacked and ran past so many Wales players, kind of sucking in players as he kind of went past others. It was amazing, and an absolutely brilliant header for Switzerland as well, and could have scored more actually. So I was really impressed by him. Koke was a funny one, but for Spain, because I was watching him and loving it because he was just sort of purring and getting on the ball, demanding the ball. But of course, it didn't work out because they didn't score. So that's a funny one for me to say, and some people might disagree with it. But I did really enjoy watching him. Pogba, I thought was fantastic last night. Varane, I thought was pretty amazing for them as well. I think we've got to talk about one England player in Phillips. I don't think we expected him as well. And I think it's interesting. Maybe we're seeing this in that midfield areas. That the players that are kind of really impressing us are the ones that are kind of breaking free from the shackles of you know, just kind of sideways passing and staying in your position. Those players that are breaking a little bit, or committing players as well. Also for Sweden, I just wanted to shout out as well, I thought Danielsson, the centre-back, was absolutely it was a hero for them, putting his body on the line consistently and kept them out. So those are the players that have maybe surprised me or been the best so far. I think, of course, Insigne looked great as well. Immobile looked great as well. But it's early days. Berardi looked great as well. Alaba looked good. Meunier getting a goal as well. So lots of good players so far. Schick, we haven't even spoken about Schick, but I think both of those were kind of opportunistic moments instead of like overall fantastic play. But yeah, I think the first name that came to mind for me was Mbola. And last up, Sol Harris Woodfin, great name. Do Spain really have a chance of winning this with Morata as their main striker? Although his finishing is questionable, I think you'll be hard pushed to find a number 9 who plays that role as well as he does for Spain. I'm backing him to bring it home for Spain. Well, Sol, there is a problem here, because if your question there is suggesting that he's the best number 9, according to the game against Sweden, you're probably right, because it was him and Moreno. In terms of the expected goals, 0.48 from 3 shots for Morata, which generally, and none of those were on target, by the way. He missed an absolute sitter in the first half. And then you've got Moreno, who came on, who could be that different option as a number 9, who's had a great season, 23 goals in 33 games in La Liga. But his XG was 0.62. And so he didn't score. He arguably had a worse game. So if you're going solely on that, that's one thing. But I think, look, broadly, Morata has great movement. He does. He has fantastic movement. And I guess the concern for Spain, and it felt a little bit like watching Liverpool this season, where the other team's going to defend really, really deep, and you go, come on then, break us down. And I think there's a kind of confidence maybe in the opposition that they don't truly believe that they're going to be able to break them down, because if you look at the average positions of Spain in that game, although the width was supposedly coming from the fullbacks, likes of Jordi Alba, it wasn't really there. There was a lot of sort of inside runs, and the average positions were actually quite narrow. And I know that's because they're kind of trying to pop it about, but I think they need to spread the pitch a little bit more to try and get them. We know Spain are a possession-based team. We know they've got great footballers who can do that. But again, even those midfielders, likes of Koke, the likes of Pedri, it was kind of in safe areas. And then once they got to that kind of final line, the 2 4s of Sweden played a 4-4-2. There was just no real space there for them, which is, I think, is a problem for all of the big teams, because anyone who's not going to come out and have a go, they're going to do that. And in elite football, it's really hard to break those teams down. So you do need a quality striker, and you need great crosses to come in as well. I think that's something that a lot of these teams aren't concentrating on. And it makes me think, I was watching the game yesterday, I was thinking, there is space for a big man again, a big striker, to sort of to unlock it a different way. Spain don't have that. I mean, Moreno could maybe offer that a little bit more as a proper striker. Morata's going to kind of look for those little runs in, but he lives offside a lot of the time. It's easy to kind of heckle Morata, but a lot of his play is good. But his finishing is not, unfortunately, for me. So I think this is exactly what will cost Spain. There'll be games where they'll win. It'll be liquid football. And I think the first goal in all of these games in the Euros is always going to be crucial. But can they win the Euros without a proper striker? They need one of those guys to get hot, basically. And will they give one of those players a long enough chance? I think you've got a better chance of Moreno doing that, going on a hot streak, than Morata, in my opinion. And so I would play Moreno and give him that opportunity. But for the broader play, Morata is the better player. So it's a really difficult question for Luis Enrique to answer. And the problem as well, I think, is that where are the goals going to come? Koke as well had a couple of chances, and he's never scored for Spain ever. So I think that is a problem. They will be too good for some teams, but I think as it gets further down the line, I think that teams that can defend well and have good defensive shape with a low block should be able to shut out this Spanish team. So there you have it, guys. That was the fallout from the first round of games. I hope you have enjoyed it. Like I said, go check out Ultimate Fan. Get involved. Link is in the description. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button as well. And I'll see you in the next one.